Hello, welcome to Stakeholder Management Essentials. In this study, we'll be taking a look at what exactly it means to manage stakeholders. We'll be examining some of the core definitions of what stakeholders are, and then we'll begin to examine the Stakeholder Management chapter as documented in the PMBOK Guide 5th edition. Chapter 13 is where stakeholder management is talked about, so we will dive into that and go into some details regarding what exactly stakeholder management is all about. Our main objectives in this course are to understand what stakeholder management is, to walk away with a firm understanding. So we'll take a review of stakeholder management from these perspectives: identifying stakeholders, planning stakeholder management, managing stakeholder engagement, and controlling stakeholder engagement. Now, when we get done with these four core processes for stakeholder management, we will dive into the 12 laws of stakeholder leadership based on my book, The 12 Laws of Stakeholder Leadership. So let's start off by defining what exactly a stakeholder is. When you hear the term stakeholder, what comes to mind? A stakeholder is an individual, a group, or an organization that are affected by your project or could also contribute to your project. When you talk about stakeholders, these folks that we call stakeholders are affected by the product of our project, a decision that we may make on our project, a particular activity, or an outcome that revolves around our project. A stakeholder can also affect the project or exert influence over the project. They could exert their will. They could decide that your project will not proceed except certain things are met. They could also be people in the general public who are affected by your project. So there's a wide array of people who are actually called stakeholders. When you think about stakeholders, it's not just the customer. The stakeholder could be a wide array of people. Take a look here and begin to take a look at these stakeholders: your boss, your shareholders, the government, senior management, business partners, trade associations, co-workers, your team, customers, even prospective customers. I mean, the list is endless. All of these people could be your stakeholders. So when you use the term stakeholder, don't think about just the customer. It could be anyone that's impacted by your project, or anyone who could impact your project or be interested in your project. Lots of people, when they hear the term stakeholder, they immediately think customer, and it limits their ability to manage everyone else in the picture, their team, their boss, and so on. So, talking about your team, what would your team say about your last project? I'm guessing you've been a project manager because you're watching this, or maybe you're not a project manager. The question could be, was your last project a success, or was your last assignment a success? Assuming you were put on a project or an assignment, what will your team say? What do you say? What do you say about your last project? Was your last project really a success? Now, you'll probably say it was, but what will your stakeholders say? You know, it's all about stakeholder perception. If your stakeholders say your last project was a failure, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you say. It's all about the stakeholder. So this is where we begin to ask ourselves, how can we get our stakeholders to view our projects as a success? It's all about stakeholder perception. Now, you probably laugh at this picture: a cat holding a stick in his mouth. Breaking news: cat thinks he's a dog. This cat, no matter what you do to it, will continue to think it's a dog. It's all in its perception. A project success hinges on stakeholder perception. It doesn't matter what the PM says. The PM could think he's the king of the hill and he was the best thing that ever happened to project management. If your stakeholders say it's a failure, it really is a failure. Stakeholders are the number one reason why we take on projects, and they're the number one reason also why projects fail. Because when projects fail, it's because we didn't manage our stakeholders properly. We didn't manage our team properly. We didn't manage our stakeholder perceptions properly. Because the people actually carrying out the work, they are also your stakeholders. Anyone who could impact the project, the team, anyone who could be impacted by the project, outside of the project, they're all stakeholders. So this is a really important area, you see. You might think your project is a success, but your stakeholders say no. It's no. Perception is reality. In the world of stakeholder management, perception is really reality. It's very important that we see our stakeholders as the number one reason why we have a job. They're the number one reason why we are working on a project. If you remember from PMBOK Guide 101, stakeholders authorize projects. Your initiator, your sponsor, your company. The reason why those capital projects are being authorized is to fulfill real needs, to fulfill stakeholder needs. So stakeholder management is such a big area that the PMI made it chapter 13 in the PMBOK Guide. When we come back, we'll take a look at what the PMBOK Guide 5th edition perspective is to the PMBOK Guide, taking a look at identifying stakeholders, planning stakeholder management, managing stakeholder engagement, and controlling stakeholder engagement.